Hi everyone, it's Patricia Warby, Alchemy Therapies and my emotional audit. Hello, and another in my weekly updates. And today I want to talk about shame. There's a subject that nobody wants to talk about. Well, I want to sort of work a way of talking about shame that doesn't actually make it something shameful. And I thought I'd read you a article that I often send to clients by a chap called Matt Lacata, who I just think what he's saying is so important, but he puts it in a way that's quite lyrical. It's quite poetic. And so I wanted to break it down for you. So I'm going to read perhaps the first paragraph and intersperse that with my comments, because I just think shame is at the basis of why people get stuck and why they can't heal, both psychologically and physically. And so here's Matt Lacata's thoughts on shame. To transform ancient circuitries of shame and hidden self-hatred require the willingness to integrate disorder in our psychic reality, as we will be asked to reorient in ways that we cannot know ahead of time. Right. Now, that's a hell of a starter, all right, to transform ancient circuitries of shame. So these have come not just from our experience, but from the experience of our parents and grandparents and so on. These are traumatic imprints that epigenetically we get imprinted with when we're born. And now, look, if we get loads of support and understanding from our parents, that won't traumatize us. But often we don't get that because they've had the imprints too. Okay, so in order to overcome that, you have to have a willingness to integrate disorder. What does he mean by that? In our psychic reality, he means it's going to get bumpy, folks. When you come into acknowledgement of what happened to you in your past and the effect it's had on you, it can be disorienting initially, and it can be something that you're going to need support for to help you ride the wave, ride the bumps. That's not to say this is a dreadfully difficult or awful process. It can be joyful to finally be met by someone, to finally be held and supported through the difficulties, the ups and downs of our repressed emotions. And the final point of that statement, because you'll be asked to reorient, in other words, change direction, change focus in ways that we cannot know ahead of time, all right? And so this is the crux of the problem, right? It's uncertain. When you start to engage on psychological trauma healing, you won't know necessarily ahead of time what's going to come up. And that's why you need support with somebody who gets that and is able to support and engage you and help you from a standpoint of safety, of safe connection, so that you can ride the bumps without further traumatization. A few weeks ago, I talked about Sinead O'Connor and how she went through hours and hours of trauma therapy each day at this supposed facility that Dr. Phil had recommended. 9 hours a day, she recounts. Now, if you're doing 9 hours a day of trauma therapy and you still feel like shit, let's be fair, let's use the word, then something's not working, all right? When we work through the body and we work in ways in which your back brain understands, your unconscious mind, then you don't need that amount of time and effort. You need just a little bit of connection, safe connection. And so the second sentence is, if it is no longer possible to engage the world from the achy ground of unworthiness, unworthiness is what shame is, how will we proceed, right? We get used to what we have as normal, and we find it really difficult, therefore, when it's maybe faced with, when we finally come face to face with our shame and realize, my God, I'm carrying all this stuff, which is what happened to me. I didn't realize I had any because I've got nothing to be ashamed of. But that's not what shame is. It's a feeling of unworthiness, of I'm not right, I don't belong, I'm an outsider in this world, and I'm looking on other people having a decent life, and somehow I don't deserve a place at the party. And then he carries on to say, if those familiar reference points are no longer available, what will we organize around? You know, because we've become used to it. What will the new image or metaphor through which we will live, love, and create? Now, what would it be? And I faced this morning with a client who, like, she doesn't know how she's going to become herself, come home to herself. She doesn't know what that looks like. She has an inkling, but she doesn't know how to put it into practice. And that's because she hasn't got connection with her body's instincts. She's repressed and denied that. And so he goes on to say, the habitual abandonment of our embodied vulnerability, right? Our embodied vulnerability, the vulnerability that we hold inside ourselves from our childhoods, you know, where you couldn't do anything, you couldn't argue, you couldn't fight, you couldn't run away. That's what vulnerability is, but it's actually, it's the groundswell of creativity. You can't create without a certain amount of vulnerability. And other states of disavowed feelings that we weren't allowing ourselves to feel, you know, because we don't dare go to states of vulnerability when it was so dreadful the first time round, but it's actually essential if you want as an adult to overcome your childhood imprints. And these imprints have, in Matt Lacata's words, they've become so encoded that we cannot know in advance what it will be like to make the journey without them. We've become used to the I that we have created, the personality that we've created, but it's in reaction to our experience as children. And so we're adults, supposedly, with, you know, children's emotional responses. No wonder we have trouble. There is a certain excitement in stepping into new territory, but it can also generate disorientation as we sense a pending confrontation with the unknown. You know, we're meeting face to face with the shadow side of us, and we don't know what it's going to do to us. And so many people are so terrified of this, they don't ever face that in order to heal. And that's why they get stuck. We must be kind to ourselves during times of transition, right? This is so important. Honoring the actualities of what it truly means to heal, you know. Compassion, kindness goes a long, long way during the bumpy ride. And to slow down and soften as we are asked to provide sanctuary for the wounds, grief, and unfelt joys of a lifetime. To offer a temple of rest where the disowned inner travelers, that's all the parts of ourselves that didn't belong, can gather and return. You know, for providing an inner sanctuary is so much easier when you have somebody else to guide you. All right, healing is an inside job, but it's so much easier with another. To bring in not only the difficult wounds, you know, the grief, but also the unfelt joys, the joy of life. I had a client today who experienced an extreme moment of joy a week ago, and it completely overturned her chronic fatigue. We don't know if that's forever, but it's certainly, she went feeling pretty dreadful and she came away feeling magnificent. Joy is the opposite to despair, and it has a huge healing component to it. But, you know, you're offering a temple of rest where all the parts of yourselves that got disowned and discounted and disavowed, you know, banished from the wholeness of integrated being, can come home. You can learn to come home to yourself. We do not rid ourselves of the unwanted by relegating it into the shadow, but by attunement and re-embodiment to the full spectrum. So here he's saying we just can't just push it away and go, all right, you stay over there, and I, you know, we'll just hope that things get better. You have to bring it into the light, you know, by reattuning, in other words, connecting with yourself, which first of all, you borrow another nervous system that feels grounded to attune to. That's what we do when we're young, hopefully with a mother or father. That for many of us that didn't happen, and we misattuned, and then we lose the faith in ourselves to be able to connect with our truth. And so finding attunement with yourself and re-embodiment, coming back into our bodies, to the full spectrum of experience, you know. By deserting that which longs for reunion, we will only create the conditions for a future eruption, which is sure to occur in less than conscious ways. Right? You push stuff away for long enough, eventually it comes back to bite you, okay? It will come up in chronic symptoms, sometimes mental, sometimes physical, but it will come back to you because it's trying to heal, and it can't be done by ignoring it. Okay, well, that's all for now. I'm going to record another one very soon where we'll look a bit more about these ideas of shame. But just understanding that it has to be engaged with, the full spectrum of your emotion has to be engaged with, because you cannot reorganize the patterns of a lifetime by just ignoring stuff. All right, so I hope that ignited your passion and your hope. And if you want to get in touch or you want to learn more, please go to my website, alchemytherapies.co.uk. You'll see my books, you'll see my courses, everything's up there. There's never been a better time. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.